going on, Jeromes? It's a beautiful Monday. It's time for another Vikings Q&A. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. Let's dive on in. Jake Perry. If the Vikings can't trade into the top three, who would you like the team? What would you like the team to do in the draft? I initially thought it said, who would you like the team to do in the draft? Graphic. Anyways, so if the Vikings do have to stick and pick at 11 and 23. Well, I actually think if the Vikings don't trade down, or trade up, I think that they potentially could trade down. But that's another kettle of fish. But sticking and picking at 11-23, they can still get their quarterback of the future. Now, it won't be the big four, but luckily this year is potentially one of the deepest quarterback classes in NFL history. So at 11 seems a little bit high for guys like Penix or guys like Bo Nix. Now, yes, you do run the risk of potentially one of those players going to the Broncos at 12. Let's pull that up. So you do run the risk of potentially one of those guys going to the Broncos at 12, the Raiders at 13, or even the Steelers at 20, since both Fields and Russ are on one-year deals. But I do think that the Vikings could stick and pick and get their quarterback of the future at 23. But at 11, they're in an interesting spot because they could have their choice of the edge rushers potentially. They could have the choice of the corners potentially, as well as obviously all the interior offensive linemen are going to be there too. But also they could have the choice of interior defensive linemen. And I love me some Byron Murphy II. Being a quasi-Texas fan, I'm a little bit biased, but Johnny Newton of Illinois, a.k.a. Drazon Newton, The more I scratch this kid's lotto ticket, now I watch a lot of Big Ten football, so obviously was aware of him, but he can just get it, man. And with Aaron Donald's retirement, I'm not saying that Johnny Newton's going to be Aaron Donald, but you see some of the crossover there. We're a little bit undersized, but violent at shedding blocks, great at getting penetration. And there were some games last year, like the Wisconsin game and to a degree the Gopher game, he just took over. He just dominated. Offenses couldn't do anything at the line of scrimmage because of him. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't do anything because of four. And that's something to keep in mind. I think Drazon, a.k.a. Johnny Newton, could be something really special in this league. Plus, we know my love for Penix, as well as Nix is going to be in that mix as well. Next up, Dan Wagner. Why hasn't Vikings traded up yet? Could be a couple things where maybe the Vikings are waiting to see if the Falcons get their pick docked because, like we pointed out before, if the Falcons somehow lose their number 8 pick, which unlikely, but there's a question about it. We'll get into it. All of a sudden, 11-23 becomes 10-22, and that is valuable. Could be a spot as well is the conspiracy, maybe the KJ signing was part of the trade in place with the Patriots. Who knows? Or it could be a spot too, where maybe the Vikings have a deal with the Chargers or a deal with the Cardinals in their back pocket, but it's contingent if they can't do better. And the Vikings could potentially be in the driver's seat right now. We are 6 weeks until the draft, so nothing else is going to dramatically change. And the Vikings could take their time. Now, I think if the Vikings do trade up to 2 or 3, I think that it will be before the draft, 4 or 5, maybe during the draft. We'll see. That leads to the question. When do you think a trade for picks 2 to 5 will get done? So 2 or 3 could happen right now. That's something that you're watching for right now, because I feel like if and when the Vikings and the Commies or Patriots, I think more likely the Patriots, come to an agreement, that thing can get done now, right? Whereas 4 gets a little bit dicey because, like we said, if the Vikings are indifferent of May, McCarthy, and Jaden Daniels, they could do 4 now and then just take whoever gets left. And also, there isn't a danger of getting leapfrogged for one of the big 4 quarterbacks. But 5 is dicey. So I think 5 you can only specifically do during the draft. And it would have to be a spot where QBs go 1, 2, 3 in all likelihood. And 4 doesn't go to the Giants. And now you're playing with fire here a little bit too, because the Cardinals could play hardball and pit the Vikings against the Giants in a bidding war. But like we said, maybe the Cardinals don't want to move out because they have their choice of wide receiver 1, maybe Harrison Jr., or tackle 1, maybe Joe Alt. All right, so 2, 3 could happen before the draft. 4 could happen before or during the draft, depending on which quarterback remains after the top 3. And 5 would have to happen during the draft, because it would make 0 sense to trade up to 5 now and give the Giants or maybe even the Broncos an open shot to leapfrog you for one of the big 4 quarterbacks. Next, OTL Sean, did you see the report where Atlanta might have to give up their first for Kirk meeting with the trainer? Any comments? So we covered this a little bit, but there is precedent for teams losing their first round pick because of tampering. Miami last year because of their supposed tampering with Tom Brady and stupid ass Sean Payton. I don't think it gets that extreme, but also the Falcons, if all of this is true, that tampering is extreme. And also, it's really stupid because no one else was bidding. Like, the Vikings were sort of over Kirk Cousins. No one else of note in open free agency was after him. But Kirk openly admitted the violations. Because, remember, teams can't contact the player, and the player can't have contact with the team until the start of the new league year, 3 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. Now, the legal tampering 2 days ahead is only for certified agents and the team. So, here's what Kirk said. He initially said meeting with the trainer, but he corrected himself to having a conversation with the trainer. So conversation with the trainer, first off, is a violation. But actually meeting in person is a nuclear violation. And it does make sense, too, because A, we know that Kirk was in Atlanta, and B, the Falcons before dropping $100 million would want an extensive look at Kirk's medicals, as well as, Kirk in person. You're really taking a look at the Achilles, having the trainer and medical staff be hands-on, probably run their own MRI, as well as watch him take a couple dropbacks. They would want that. And the fact that Kirk's contract got done 86 minutes after the start of legal tampering, I highly doubt all of that was crammed into that time. And also, again, Kirk openly admitted that he had contact with, hell, he was hyping up the team's PR staff, which he also said he had conversation with. So, again, does everyone do this? Does everyone tamper? Yes, to a degree. But if the Falcons straight up met with Kirk Cousins before the start of the new league year, again, forget legal tampering because that's only for agents and teams. That's biblically bad. That's like locusts and frogs and stuff, and Kirk meeting with the Falcons. So, yeah, I mean, do the Falcons deserve to be punished? Yeah. And now, is it a spot where the Falcons will have to give up draft picks to the Vikings? I think unlikely. I think unlikely, even though there is precedent for that. But I think it's a spot where the Vikings weren't going to re-sign Kirk, so they just might be like whatever. But if somehow the Falcons get the number 8 pick taken away from them, that's huge for the Vikings draft stock, obviously, but also that's amazing. I mean, Kirk goes to Atlanta at 36, coming off an Achilles, gets $100 million guaranteed, a 4-year, $180 million deal, and it costs them the number 8 pick. Again, when they were bidding against nobody. I mean, there was no reason why they had to do this. Cackle. Lastly, Maxwell Joseph, are the Vikings the most desirable, most ideal landing spot for a rookie quarterback? Well, Bears fans say it is Chicago because we have the corpse of Keenan Allen now. Cool. Right. I know I'm biased, but watching the way J.J. McCarthy, ooh, baby, I love your way, lit it up when asked about meeting, Kevin O'Connell spoke volumes. In addition to what Dan Orlovsky mentioned last Friday on McAfee, brilliant young head coach, elite offensive weapons, high-end offensive line, and no stress to start your first year. Seems like Credible Place land. Well, all right, so those were specifically Orlovsky's words. High-end offensive line. I mean, the interior definitely needs work. But O'Neal, if he can bounce back, he can be a top 5 right tackle. Darisaw can be one of the best left tackles in the game if he stays healthy. You have J.J. Addison, Hawkinson when he gets back. Obviously elite. And also the running game now with Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones. All of a sudden, that looks pretty damn rosy. And Kevin O'Connell, you can see why guys want to play for Kevin O'Connell, especially offensive guys. Like he's got this fun personality, and he's definitely a player's coach. And, throughout 2 years, he's definitely been learning on the job, but we've seen some highs, we've seen some lows, and hopefully he learns from the lows. I think that Kevin O'Connell can be one of the bright offensive minds in this game. Plus, I mean, don't sleep on Josh McCown. I mean, Josh McCown reportedly is going to be one of the best quarterback coaches in the league. No, I don't hold Carolina against him last year, but I mean, yeah, it is going to be a great spot here in Minnesota. Plus, remember, the Florida's defense is getting better and better and growing and showing. And also, the fact that the Vikings play their home games indoors, I mean, that's not a non-factor for sure. Plus, the fact that, I mean, yeah, the Vikings probably have lowered expectations for 2024. as they're trying to get their rookie quarterback off the ground. I mean, the Vikings are kind of like the Texans as of last year. Maybe the Vikings can find their C.J. Stroud, but it's a great spot where he can hit the ground running, and he'll be given the keys to a Cadillac. Now, do you necessarily want to do that to a first-time driver? Who knows? Who knows? But also, I think O'Connell is smart enough not to put too much on the kid's plate and really let everything else take care of itself. So I think we're in a good spot. But that's it. That is Vikings Q&A for this beautiful Monday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.